live. Sweet. This
All
is
right.
episode 2 of the 725 podcast. We got a very, very, very special guest. Shingirai Mugadza, aka Papa Cowboy, aka my dad. It's good to have you on the show. How you
All right.
doing?
I'm doing good, man. My pleasure. I mean, I don't know what's coming, but I'm doing good. Direct from Texas, Dallas, Texas, Big D.
Yeah, the big D, man.
There you go.
And we made it to the end of December. Uh, End of the year 2020. It's been a crazy year. How have you been holding up this
Yeah,
whole year?
yeah. I mean, it has been. I mean, one of those, you know, rocky, you know, with all this Corona, whatever, and all those other kinds. But I mean, we have made it. It's already December. We are counting down,
All right.
waiting for 2021.
What 21 holds. It's interesting.
Yeah,
See what the world is gonna look like with vaccines and
yeah,
all that.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm thinking maybe with the vaccine that is out there, and I mean in 2021, I'm thinking. I mean, I'm very optimistic. We might start turning the curve. You know,
You hear about
and
the new strains though that started in England?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard that the new strain. But I'm hoping that will end right over there in
Right. Like, keep it over there. Like let's keep it
yeah, right.
contained this
We
time.
don't have to be dealing with it over here, man. I mean, we are tired of this, you know. I mean, because everything is down, man. Business is down. People are
Yeah.
confined in the houses, and there's a lot of stress and depression and whatever. Some unknowns there. People are dealing with a lot of stuff, man, around. So we just want to go back to a new normal, like they're saying, new normal.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely.
But through this year, you feel like you've taken away any like self-reflective time. Like you feel like you've gotten a different sense of self through just being able to slow down, if you even had the ability to slow down this year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, this year has been a year where I have really been. I'm always. I'm a person who really. I mean, loves to have my own special time, quiet time
Yeah.
where I reflect a lot, if I can
Right.
say. But I think this year has really taught me a lesson that in as much as us as human beings want to be in control, we are definitely not in control of anything. I
Yeah.
mean, COVID has taught us that we are not
Not at
in
all.
control as we. I mean, is normally we call ourselves like I got this. I'm in control. I'm in charge. But I think for me, my biggest lesson is I mean, there are natural events or whatever, supernatural events out there that, you know, really sometimes tell us that we are definitely not in control.
Let's just take it all the way back to where do you come from, like your childhood, and what's kind of made you who you are in terms of always being reflective in nature. Like, well, where do you come from?
All right. I mean, that's a broad question. I mean, basically, I mean, for the other people who are going to be listening to this recording, I mean, obviously, I have an accent. That's one thing people I mean, when here over here in America, I mean, like, the first thing when you're talking to someone, the first thing they do, you're like, oh man, where are you from?
Yeah.
So just because of your accent, I mean, and I understand that. Uh, Maybe to just go step by step, I was born and raised in Africa, specifically Zimbabwe,
Mm.
Southern Africa, a country that is right close to the southern tip of Africa, close to South Africa. We border South Africa and Mozambique and Zambia and Botswana. So right there in Africa, born and raised over there in Africa. We are in a family of 12 kids.
Big
One
family.
is late. One is late, and we are 11 surviving right now. Most of them, I mean, all of us, we are all grown with our own families out there. So I was born and raised in Africa, Zimbabwe. That's where I went to school, went to public schools, I mean, in my early years. And when I was in high school, I went to boarding school. All my high school years, I did boarding school.
Well, in
Uh,
Zimbabwe, were you in more rural Zimbabwe, or were you more
I
city?
was actually deep in the country. Yeah. I grew up in the countryside. I never was raised in town or in the cities. Grew up in the rural areas. I mean, deep in the rural areas. But I mean, for the sake of the recording, we were not living with lions and elephants. Like,
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
oh yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. And we were not actually. We never slept in trees.
Yeah.
No, I never saw a lion in my childhood years growing up, even though I grew up in the country.
All right.
Never saw a lion with my eyes. And the first time I saw a lion, I was all grown, and it was in a park, in a national park. Yes, I grew up in the country, and together with my siblings, and not very rich. I mean, we were a poor family. I mean, we never realized we were poor. I mean, looking at it now, that's when I'm saying, oh, we were not rich, we were poor. But I mean, when we were growing up, it's not something that we recognize or
Yeah.
we spoke about in our family to say, oh, we are poor, we don't have this. Now,
Yeah. It seems like a common thread amongst, people who come from, you know, more lower income families. Like they never really realize it until like it's pointed out or you get older. Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and to tell you the truth, we were a happy family. I mean, we used to laugh. We laugh a lot when we meet, me and my siblings. I mean, the thing that marks or that is dominant in our conversation is a lot of we laugh a lot. So that's grew up in that family. I mean, we never had enough. I think in my we call them primary school over here, call them elementary, me in whatever elementary and the other from first grade to the seventh grade. So that's the first part of the learning process. We used to walk, I would say a good 3-4 miles to school.
wow.
Yes.
To and from, or so
No, just
it's
one way.
whew.
Yes, one way. So we would wake up maybe around 5-6 o'clock, just get ready to go to school. Then we'd start walking to school, and maybe 6, and the starting school would be maybe around 8 o'clock. So we'd
Wow.
walk to
So you're saying it
school.
would take you 2 hours to walk to school?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely, but we were kids, we were strong. Sometimes we'd run to school. So we were just energetic, and we were really, we loved school. I mean, for me, there was not even a day that I never wanted to go to school. I loved to go to school. So sometimes, with no shoes on, just bare feet, we go to school. And I mean, we never really, to tell you the truth, for me, never really thought about it, to say, oh, I don't have any shoes and I felt any shame because most of the kids were like me.
Yeah.
They didn't have any shoes, and I didn't have any shoes. And what was important for us is to go to school. So we
Yeah.
just go to school with our books and pens, you know, and after school, walk back home every day, Monday to Friday. And I mean, that was our life. That was my life, growing up. And sometimes my dad would buy me some tennis shoes, but I would never use them because my friends, they never had any shoes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw any need to put on tennis shoes whilst my friend, I had a best friend that I really loved and we played with. He's still there in Zimbabwe, my good friend. So I never bothered to use my shoes because, I mean, my friend didn't have any shoes. So,
Yeah, that's real.
yeah, so I just went to school like that, and I was a happy child. Personally, I was just happy. Going to school made me so happy for me. I mean, and I thank God for it. I really thank God. Was it so hard? School? No, I never really struggled in school, and I'm thankful to the Lord for that. I am really thankful. I
So when
don't
you were
remember
younger, you
any.
were you more of an intellectual when you're
No, no, not at all. I think I was an average student.
okay?
I was very average, but I played with my friends. Were the real deal.
Yeah.
They were just smart young men, and so I think the thing that really helped me growing up was just I just had a desire. I was very competitive, you know. I had a very competitive spirit, to say if someone was excelling, I would really want it to excel the way they excelled, even more. So, as an average student, it forced me to study hard, put more effort. But I wouldn't say I had natural intelligence. No,
Hmm.
not so. Just in brief, that's my education. Like I said, high school, I went to boarding school, and that was an advantage for me. I don't think I would have made it if I didn't go to boarding because there were actual other schools where you'd opt for not, going for boarding school.
Hmm.
What we would call them day schools, where you are in high school, but you go back home every day. But I don't think I was going to make it
What do you mean?
because in boarding school there was that regiment. We had after dining in the evening, we would go for studies. It was structured.
Hmm.
We would live at the boarding school, and all you do is to go to class and to read your books. That's typically was the routine if you are not doing sports or anything. So it really was an advantage for me because there was no distractions, and at home we didn't have electricity.
Hmm.
By the way, there was no electricity at home. We cooked by fire, by the
Fire.
firewood.
Yeah.
I mean, so when you talk about reading in the evenings, there was no. I mean, we had those lantern lights. I mean, if you see the movies where those lights they put in the camps,
Yeah.
you know, those are the ones we use. So I mean, they were so poor lights, they were very poor. So in boarding schools, we had everything. We had the electricity. I had my own bed. I had my own locker. Everything. I mean, it was provided. So it really was an advantage on my part because it really just helped me to, focus on my studies.
What gave you
Um,
that energy to? Because by the sound of it, it sounds like you really valued learning in your education. Like what was it in you that made you really make that decision? Like, man, I need to be here to learn.
you know, uh, because I think if I say it just came on myself, I would be lying because I was young. I mean, I was just as foolish as a young person. I mean, can be foolish sometimes. But I think what they did in boarding schools, they really hammered, the important. Like the school that I went to, the last school I went it was a boys' high.
Mm.
It was a boarding school just for boys. And I mean, it was one of the highest, the cream of the cream in the country. I mean, it produced very, what do you call it? Very good results.
Mm.
So the headmaster or the principal of that school, because he wanted to maintain the name of the school.
All
So
right.
it was something that was really, really hammered in the students. They would only hire, bright students on that campus. So you are already talking of students who are already motivated to learn.
Mm.
plus a little bit of the fuel from the principal. I mean, it was just, and we used to compete with other schools, for higher grades and stuff like that. So for me, that's why I say it was an advantage, because I was very competitive in my pursuit of education, because I knew I was from the countryside, didn't come from the high, rich family. Right. So somehow, I just thought, I can compete with these kids who are coming from, from the cities, and they had everything. So I was like, no, we have the same teachers, same materials, same books, same everything. So I was like, I cannot let these kids, ride over me. I mean, I can compete. So it went on my advantage, instead of, just feeling inferior and stuff like that. I competed with them on the academic side. And I think it helped me that way, to just excel. And I think when it comes to the issue of, just, I don't know, because I think because of the environment where I grew up in a very peaceful environment in terms of the outside, because where our house, we didn't have one house growing up. We had little houses. We had one little house for boys, one little house for girls, one little house for the parents.
Are we talking about full-blown houses, or are we talking about, like, what do they look like?
Yeah, almost like, I want to use a simple language, almost like a little compound. You know what a compound looks like when they talk about compounds?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The houses that I grew up in, it was like a little mud house with a little grass thatching.
So like a hut.
So yeah, like a hut. Like a little hut, exactly like a little hut. So it was like a little hut where the boys sleep, where the girls sleep, where the parents, and where they cook their meals. That was the setup that, typically I grew up in, But I've as a child, growing up, I always, loved to go outside in the bush, If we were not working in the fields or doing any other work at home, I used to have, believe me or not, I used to have like 5 or 6 dogs around me.
Yeah, you always had a love for dogs.
I used to have a lot of dogs. Not small dogs. I used to have big dogs, not like the Chihuahuas. No. I used to have big dogs. Almost like, I would say average 5 or 6 dogs that I used to keep in my house. So if I'm not doing anything in the house, I would go in the forest to hunt with my dogs,
Oh, so the dogs would be actually going and getting the prey?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah. They were vicious dogs. They were not the dogs that sleep in the houses. Like, yeah, the dogs stayed outside. Like outside without any little dog house or anything. No, they would just sleep outside. That's how we kept our dogs, back then. So I used to love to go out in the forest. I used to enjoy it, the quietness, just, I don't know whether I was really aware of what I was doing, but I loved it. I really, and for the most part, I used to spend the rest of the day out there in the forest, and I would come home in the evenings.
Wow. Just
yes.
you and the dogs?
Me and my dogs. Yeah.
Wow.
And normally I would go with my other friend I was talking about, and he had his dogs too. So it was his dogs, my dogs, and we are gone.
That sounds like an adventure.
Yeah, and we are not talking about the little forest. We are talking about the real deal, the real forest.
No shoes either?
Yeah, and we were not afraid at all. Not at all. We were not afraid. We are not talking about those little bushes where you are like, no. Like a real forest, So we used to go out hunting. Sometimes we'd catch an animal, sometimes nothing. We'd just enjoy going out there. And what my dad taught me when I was young, he taught me fishing. So when he stopped going with me for fishing, I started going by myself.
Mm.
So that was the other thing I used to do. If I'm not hunting with my dogs, I would go fishing. So I would just go the whole day. Go out in the morning, they won't see me until in the evening. And I'm sure that has really affected my life. Uh, Even up to now, I just love to go out there, quietness, just reflect, and that's where, I have all these thoughts coming and stuff.
Right.
So that, I mean, I would say that's where my love of quietness and just time alone by myself, yeah, that's where it came.
So is it safe to assume that you were more at that time, as a young man, more artistic more than you were like athletic, or were you both, or did you?
You know what? To tell you the truth, I think I definitely agree with that. I think I had a very creative mind. And even up to now, I see things in advance more than I see things that are very close to me, like
Right.
here, you know. And I was not athletic, but I know the one thing I was good at was I was good at sprinting like 100 meters and stuff like that. I never
Yeah.
pursued it. Yeah, I never really pursued that. But in terms of just the mental creativeness, and unfortunately, it's not something that I shared with anyone, or there was anyone to really groom me along those lines.
Right.
In Africa, when we were growing up, the only thing that a parent knew to do was to send you to school, finish school so you can look for a job.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It's either you're going to make it in school and go and work in town and look for a job, or you're not going to make it, you're just going to be a nobody. It was just a narrow path, just like that. So for the most part, it was the creative part. People who did music were looked down upon during
Mm-hmm.
my generation. People really never appreciated, like, if someone started playing guitar or they were good in football, people would really talk you down on those things.
And what time period was this? 1970?
No, in 1980s, 80s,
1980s.
yeah, because for me, I finished school 92. So I would say in the 80s,
Was the
80s.
Zimbabwean guitarist Oliver? Was he prominent by then, or?
Yes, he was, but he was not highly regarded, by the way.
Mm.
We never really esteemed him the way he was esteemed in his birthday. It was almost, like, if you really dig out the archives of him, his interviews, you would hear him say, even his parents, they never thought he was going to amount to anything with his guitars and stuff.
Wow.
Oh, yes. So it was, I mean, that creativeness, and that, if you had a different mindset, unfortunately, uh, in the environment that I grew up in, of course, like I said, I grew up in the country. There was a difference with kids who grew up in town and us growing up in the country.
Right.
The kids who grew up in town were more exposed to modern things, and especially those who were television. We didn't have any TV television in the house. I mean, let alone electricity. So we didn't have
Yeah.
anything. So our mindset, especially in the countryside, I mean, it was just, yeah,
But it
it
seems like
was
there's a certain type of purity in that type of creativity where you're not referencing any type of point of like, this is more creative, or this is what, or even putting a title of this is what creativity is. It's just an intrinsic nature to just dream and to think about things differently.
definitely.
Alongside.
But I mean, the downside to it was, like, there was not an environment to capture that
Yeah. Right.
creativeness, you know.
Right.
Now, if I go back, because I mean, I went back there 2013. I went back where I grew up in, and now I would really feel different, and the inspiration now I would be able to capture it and write it down.
Yeah.
But that's about like what 30 years or so later. But the time that I grew up in, I was just overwhelmed with those feelings and overwhelmed with those big, huge thoughts. And I was almost like stuck with them. You don't even know what to do with those. You know?
Yeah, that's a tough feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are just so overwhelmed and you feel it right here in your spirit, and you don't, sometimes you lack the proper language to articulate it, what you are feeling and what you are seeing in your inner eyes,
Mm.
to an extent that you are almost fighting with that feeling so that you are suppressing it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you feel like you are normal with everybody else around you. It's
Wow.
only now when you are looking from the outside and now you're like, oh, that's why I felt this way. You know,
Mm.
that's why, I always felt like there was something different about me, the way I saw things, the way I would really feel out things. But I mean, I never got to share, like, share the feelings with the rest of the world, where either in song or in poetry or in whatever gift that I was supposed to use, to bring out those inspiration. That's what I think.
What do you think could help like cultivate that type of environment, like going back to where you're from in Zimbabwe, to for like all the young dreamers that are out there right now? You think it's
Yeah.
changed, or you think like, yeah, what there's something that could help cultivate?
You know what? That's a very profound statement, because when I actually went there, that's one thing that I had in my mind. Uh, on the positive side, when I went back, I found out that now some of the villagers have electricity. Electricity now is available
Mm.
in my area where I grew up in. And not only that, some of the houses, they have now solar energy, solar power.
Wow.
And not only that, it's almost now everybody in the countryside where I grew up in, now they have cell phones.
Ah, beautiful.
So it's almost like, whoa, I was super surprised. I'm like, really? And they're no longer using those. When I was asking about those little lamps that were, I'm like, oh no, we don't use those anymore. You know,
Man, looking
they
at
have
you crazy.
flashlights. They have. So I think, but still, I think if I was going to go back there, or if I was going to go back and set up something that would help young people, is maybe trying to help them out, that whatever they have, they have to bring it out and put it down on, download it on their cell phones or whatever. Now they have cell
Yeah,
phones.
they can at
You know,
least see what's
I,
out there.
yeah, exactly. I think now it's easier. It has become easier. If I'm going to go there and try and harvest all these talents, musical talents, whatever talents, academic. I mean, the area that I came from, man, the kids, I mean, I've never seen an area where we have kids that have that highest IQ academic.
Mm.
But unfortunately, for the most of them, they never went very far with education because of the background, financial background and stuff.
Shout out the area where you're from. I don't think you said
Uh, I,
specifically.
I came from the area called St. Albert's Mission,
Mm.
and the specific area is Nembire. It's called Nembire.
Nambire.
Yes, so that's where that's exactly where I came from, and I grew up in that area. And I went to actually the primary school I went to is called Nembire Primary School. And in my area where I grew up, the Nembire area, I've never really encountered, young, bright, bright. right. And I'm still convinced we still have even two other young people who are coming up was who are really bright, academically. They are, you know, they are gifted kids out there,
Yeah,
very gifted.
I still remember you telling me that I need to use my resources when I'm able to get the fruits of my labor to go help out people out there. I feel like that's something we should team up and really be
Oh
active
yeah, definitely,
about figuring
definitely.
out.
What I would actually suggest is a trip. The first, just to get it, is just to take a trip there, get acquainted with the kids, see the need on the ground,
Right.
and definitely you will be inspired with the kids out there. You will be definitely inspired. I think the first thing we might want to do is the last time I was making inquiries at the primary school because I really wanted to do something
Yeah.
for my primary school is they have an old dilapidated computer room, with somebody, I think somebody donated old computers, like
Yeah.
old school computers. That's what they have. I mean, if we can start with those small things,
Right.
to just get them, because now they have electricity. So, I mean, that is solved already. So if we can provide those basic needs, we go there, set up a very good computer system. They have up-to-date computers, uh, something to start from.
Yeah, that's a matter of just really planning, because that's if it's planned right and you tap into
Yeah,
the right places, it can be relatively inexpensive.
exactly. Exactly. But I mean, they are really talented. I mean, musically, you'll be surprised if we go there, you know, you see some of the musical instruments these people use, just, to entertain themselves and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a rich place, you know.
When you were younger, were you always a music head? Because that's something that you really always been on it with music. It's almost like you
Yeah,
were like programming us with the music when we were
yeah,
younger.
when I was young, I know I would always, wherever I was, I would be singing.
Mm.
That's what I remember. I would be, it was just singing everywhere. I mean, and to tell you the truth, I didn't know that it was a gift. Because if I
Wow.
say I knew, then I'll be lying, but I didn't know. But there was just something that connected me with music. I loved music. By the way, my father used to have a small local traditional band.
Oh wow, I did
Oh
not know
yes.
that.
And unfortunately, that time we didn't have any recordings where we would record him. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you call those instruments. They would uh, they would play. I don't know what they are called.
Like
I'll find out the
embedded
name. But it's called mbira.
beta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had a little band. You'd be hired, to play in those other traditional gatherings. But I loved music ever since I was young. I mean, that for some reason, music spoke to my heart more than how people spoke to me.
Yeah. What
So
type of
even
music
when
were
I
you listening to?
I listen, you know what? To tell you the truth, when I was young, because we were not exposed to modern music in the countryside.
Mm.
But I'll tell you, when I started working in 1993.
Okay.
And when I had a radio of my own, I used to listen to classical music.
Hmm.
Oh, yes. I loved classical music. And I used to clash with my friends all the time. Each time they would come to my house, I'm listening, and they were like, "What kind of music is that?" You know, I loved class, and I just loved the way they played it. It was so peaceful. And I didn't know, to tell you the truth, I didn't know, I mean, the background, the history of classical music, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it captured my attention. And I was just like, this music is so fascinating. And I understood it.
Mm.
I never did music in school. We never had any, I didn't have a, I didn't go to, A schools where they would teach music and stuff like that. So I didn't know. Never played a guitar, didn't know how to write music, all those things I didn't know. I mean, but if I was not listening to classical music, guess what? I loved country music.
See, when people get on me for having eclectic sound of music, I always like revert it back to you. You always listening to different music all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So there I was. I loved to listen to country music. And I mean, those times, those days, it was what? Dolly Parton, Jim Reeves, who was, I mean, I actually knew these guys. I mean, the country musicians. I mean, I enjoyed country music because the way they would tell a story in a song,
Yeah.
for somehow, it really connected with me. I really loved it.
That's true.
And
Country music really is storytelling music.
yeah, exactly. I mean, whether it was a love song or he was talking about his own home country or hometown, whatever, I loved it. I never really loved. Okay, not loved. I never listened much to my local music, not because I didn't like it, but I felt there was a lot of repetition without any message in it.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just drawn to music where I would press a message into it,
Right.
something that had a message, and I would listen and I would write a story of my own through the music.
Like your own
Somebody would
version of it.
yeah, I would write a story. I would actually tell you a story when I listen to music. I'm like, okay, this and this, this and this. I mean, it sounds weird,
Wow.
but that's what I would, you know, what I would normally do.
Did you ever get into like rap at that time? Because that was like in the '90s, right? So we're talking about like the Tupac era and
There was this they call no, not rap music. No, I didn't. I was not exposed to rap music.
mm,
No, not at all. But I know there was what they call funky music, something like that. Break dance, yeah. They would say what break dance, where they would,
yeah.
yeah, that was my time, when they would break dance and do like this. But I mean, I never really, yeah, I listened to it, but I was not really into it, not at all. Yeah,
So,
maybe, maybe because I mean it was far above my taste. I don't know.
but that's crazy because that's the era where rap was really more story based. But I guess maybe it was like different cultures that.
But I think rap music, even on our radios, it was introduced a little late because, mind you,
Mm,
we didn't have a lot of radio stations,
right, makes
and those
sense.
radio stations were state controlled. And I think most of the rap music, I come from a country where we were very conservative, so they
Mm,
wouldn't allow any music that was a little bit out of, that they considered, uh, not really suitable for the society.
right.
So I'm thinking they would have censored those kind of music, you know.
So fast
And
forward, you come to America in like '99 or 2000.
yeah, 2000.
So that when you came to America, that was kind of your full blown introduction
Yeah,
to rap
exactly.
music.
Yes, yes. So I mean, coming here was actually an eye opener for me in terms of not only music but even the lifestyle. Not only that, I mean, a lot of things, because I was not exposed to a lot of things. I mean, I was just a person who had a very few exposures, if I can say, I can put it that way. But music wise, because already I was a Christian that time, so
Mm-hmm.
my selection was very tight. But still, I really loved, all kinds of nice, good music.
Right.
So that's when I started doing a collection of different kinds of music out there. By the way, I actually have, I think I have over 100 CDs of just instrumental, because that's another kind of music that I like. I just like instrumental, whether it is piano, flute, uh, what you call it, the violin. Yeah,
So it sounds
I
like
love.
if you were given the opportunity, you probably would have been a producer. Like given the resources, a producer or some type of instrumentalist.
You know, actually, there was a time I started writing out songs. A few songs.
Oh yeah, I
But
remember the album.
I didn't go very far, but I don't think I can say with much confidence, because since I have zero background in music, like training or school wise or anything. I don't have, but for some reason I have an ear for music. You know,
Yeah.
if someone plays an instrument, even if I'm not seeing the person, or even I can tell you exactly whether the instrument is in tune or out of tune. And it's something that maybe everybody else can do it, but I think I have an ear for music.
Yeah, you definitely always had an ear for it.
Yeah.
What was the year when you decided to create music?
I'm not so sure, maybe 2001. And I started just having these weird episodes, man. I was just like, sometimes I would be like sleeping. Maybe it's weird, but I think for musicians, maybe you understand that. Sometimes I would just wake up in the middle of a song. I mean, I would
Yeah.
know the words, even the instruments. It's almost like it comes with the instruments and the words. But the challenge that I would always have that time was to be able to, when you are hearing an instrument in your hand,
Yeah.
to download it maybe on paper, to say, okay, this song, the instrument that I want to go with this song is this. That was my challenge. I could not download this. I mean, they are like with the song, you have the words, right?
Right.
And the words, they have to have the instrument that goes with the words.
Yeah.
That I was not able to really do that. But it was so frustrating, because if I would give someone my song and they start putting in their own sound on it, in my head I was like, no, that's not
That's
exactly
not
what
how
I
you
heard.
heard it. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, it might sound, okay, but I was like, no, that's not exactly the sound that I was hearing in my head.
Yeah.
But to convince the person to say, I want the sound to come out this way, that was my challenge. And
Yeah.
I was so frustrated, and I ended up just not even pursuing it.
But that release of it, was it, didn't it feel kind of good to like, dating back to when you're a kid, like having ideas and not being able to really release them, like finally being in a position where
Yeah,
you could do that.
there's actually something that happens inside of you when you are able to finally put in words something that is in your chest, you know,
Yeah.
or in your head, whatever it is. It's like you are birthing something, you know. That's why, like someone, they sing your song, but they sing it not the way you are hearing it. Even if everybody else is saying, "Oh, what a wonderful song!" I mean, that's a beautiful song. but in your head you're like, that is not exactly what I want this song. So it's
Right.
almost, you have that frustration because you have not downloaded even the instruments down, But yeah, there is that uh, relief that you feel when you finally spit it out, everything on paper. I think, yeah, definitely.
And then also coming to America is just like the exposure to the different types of stores of music. Did that kind of, you know, open up a
Oh yeah,
different type of box? Because I remember a time where I think we were going to the CD store pretty often.
oh yeah,
Like,
oh yeah. I think I was close to 1,000 CDs.
sheesh.
Yeah, so that's when I started collecting all the Marvin Gaye's because you know what? When I came to America, now I was exposed to jazz. I loved jazz music. Oh my God, jazz was just, oh man, I loved the way they would play their drums with the brush, the
Yeah.
way, I mean, I loved even the little instrument they use. So I started even buying jazz music because I love jazz music. And I mean, I'll just say a small story. When I was at work, I had my classical CD that I was playing. And one of these salesmen comes to me and he heard me playing that, and he was like, "Hey, is that your CD?" And I was almost getting offended. Like, I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, but
Yeah.
I thank God I caught myself early, so it's not good to prejudge someone.
Right.
So, and I composed myself and say, yeah, that's my CD. I love to listen to classical music. I mean, I could see this man brighten his face. He was like, really? You like classical music? I say, I love classical. I listen to classical music all the time. And apparently, this guy was a member of the classical whatever. He told me I'm a member of the classical whatever, music group. He says, you know what? I have a CD collection that they send me. Apparently, they made a mistake. They sent him two batches of the same CDs.
Wow.
And he says, I
Wow.
am going to bring another box for you, and I'm going to give it. Guess what? He brought me a big box of classical music,
That's God.
a brand new one, never used. Yeah. So, I mean, I loved classical. I started collecting instrumental music. I started collecting all different kinds of Christian music. And apparently, Christian music, I have rap, where
Yeah.
they are rapping their stuff and stuff like that. Oh, I have all these different kinds. So, yeah.
Even though like you always had different genres of music, but I just want to see you like find a rap album that you actually like.
Ah,
I,
yeah, I definitely like it, but I mean, I've actually slowed down right now, because I mean, CDs are they're
yeah.
getting out of, so I'm no longer, playing CDs and stuff, rather than just maybe going on my phone and listening. But yeah, I've really slowed down. Not necessarily that I don't like music anymore. I have some channels that I listen to in my car, music channels, of course, Christian. But I like the diversity of the Christian music that they have. The
Yeah.
fast beats, the slow ones, the rap, all these kinds. I equally enjoy those. Yeah.
I feel like Christian stations have gotten a lot better as of late.
Oh yeah,
It
definitely.
feels like earlier on, like in the earlier 2000s, the music was very much so like the same
Yeah,
type of like A minor, C minor
yeah,
type of.
that's true. Actually, they still have stations who are more on that level where they still have, a controlled set of music. But there are now, several stations for the young people, you
Yeah.
know, for people, I would say maybe for people who love diversity, you know,
Right.
modern music. And I know all those stations, especially in my part of town here in Dallas. I have them preset on my radio. So if I'm not listening to the words, I go to my music sessions and I enjoy my music. So yeah, I really love I love that part.
Do you tap into music subscriptions, or you just stick to YouTube?
No, I haven't gone that route, you know.
Yeah. Next time I see you, I gotta show you because it's amazing, like how I think Apple Music has over like 5 million different uh options, and they say I think correct me if I don't get on me with it. So I think it's like 30,000 new songs every day come out.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Okay. Yeah, I would love to explore that channel.
And other than like music, growing up, were you like into like drawing or anything?
To tell you the truth, I was so bad in drawing. And that was one area that, I know we used to do. There was a time we used to do drawing in school. That's the area that I really, I, I'm not, and there was also a time that we used to do crafts where, you would craft something from a wood. I mean, I was just so bad. I mean, uh, one thing that I really tried to do here when I came over here, there was a certain website I joined for where you send your poetries and stuff. I had started writing poetry.
Wow.
Well, yeah, there was time I started just writing some poetry and I was sending them. And I had one that I actually submitted for, that was vetted and it was submitted for a competition. Uh, Unfortunately, I never pursued it, but that's an area that I wish I would maybe write a book. I always feel like I want to write a book somehow.
You got to do it.
Yeah,
You got to do it.
that's an area that I really, yeah, I love to explore.
Are we talking autobiographical or?
Yeah, I think I would say autobiographical. You know, just just to download some of the thoughts. I know I've written down most of my. Sometimes the thoughts that come in my mind, I have a book where I've written them down. So I think I would love to write a
And when you finish writing that book, you got to come back on here and get an exclusive interview for the book.
exclusive. Okay. All right. We'll do that.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming out to the show and just talking. Was there any shout outs or anything you wanted to say before we depart?
Um, I mean, maybe next time when I'm really, really, really prepared for it. But thank you for having me and uh, allow me to share my story. But maybe just advice, to you young people, those young people who are coming up, is pursue your dreams. And not only that, I know a lot of people they say the same thing, pursue your dreams. But I would say, you know, dream big and run hard. You know, it's one thing to have a dream and just talk about it and not even pursue it or even do anything about it. Most people they go halfway or just maybe a little bit and then they give up and they all they do is talk and talk. But my advice is if you have a dream out there and if you really know what you want to do in life, for me, I was a confused young man growing up. I really didn't know what I wanted to do in my life.
Mm.
Never had any proper counseling or anything, even if I had all these things in my head. But if you know what you want to do in life, regardless of what other people are saying, not necessarily to say don't listen to advice, but
Right.
pursue it with passion. Pursue it with everything that you have inside of you. I mean, if it means sleepless nights, if it means, whatever it takes, do it, pursue it. And when you look back, in life, later on in your life, you should say, you know what, I did the best.